welcome back to another crafting day, or if you're new here, hello, my name is Hannah from Crafted in the Valley, and today I'm just going to be showing one of the many ways to layer your vinyls before putting them onto a glass can. So I'm going to be using two of my favourite vinyls here, the Htvront holographic and the Teckwrap Craft Glossy series. I'll put both of the product links in the description below. Now both of these vinyls have a protective layer on them, which is why they're two of my favourites. And I've got my Hummingbird design here ready to go, so we'll get that all cut on my machine. I do have a Cricut Maker 3, and it's just the two different colours for this particular design here. So we'll get that all cut out and ready to weed. So I've got them all cut here, and this Hummingbird design you can see cut beautifully, other than if you look in really close there, the eye being so small did cut a little bit funny, so I'm going to rectify that in the design before anyone else gives this one a try. So this design here, the Hummingbird, is actually going to be on my Etsy shop, Designed in the Valley, for downloadable SVGs if you did want to give this design a try yourself. Obviously any sort of color option would look beautiful, but I've gone with the pink and the holographic for today, so I'm really excited to see how it turns out. So the Teckwrap craft vinyl weeded out perfectly, as it always does for me, so I'll set that aside for now and move on to the holographic vinyl piece. Now the Htvront, similar to the Teckwrap craft, does have more of that plasticky backing on it compared to some vinyls which have that more traditional paper backing. Now everyone obviously has their preference as to what they prefer, but I actually quite like that plasticky backing on my vinyls. I think it just cuts really nicely, it weeds really nicely, but obviously everyone has their preference. Now this part is quite delicate to weed, so I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit on this one here just to save a little bit of time, but it cut really nicely. So on the holographic vinyl I actually used the premium shimmer vinyl setting with more pressure. I find that is perfect for getting through those holographic vinyls. And a little piece of the design did just shift up the top here, so I'll just use my Teckwrap tweezers, the really sharp ones, just to move that back into place. And then I just needed to weed out those middle parts of the design, ready for the layering process. So for the layering process, I'm going to be using my Htvront transfer tape. Now this one does have the grid lines on it, and they've got different sizes available. So I'm just using the 6-inch one here, which is not as wide as the others, but I've actually got it already cut to the exact size to comfortably wrap around my glass can. So it's 25 centimeters long by 13 centimeters wide, and it actually fits perfectly over my already cut design. And that's just the way that I like to do it. I find it helps when lining things up on your glass can ready for application. So what I like to do in this part with my transfer tape, rather than peel the entire backing off straight away and putting it on top of my vinyl, I peel back just one side of it, fold it over, and that'll act as a bit of a pull tab. So you can flatten down just one end of it with your scraper, and then use that folded back part to then pull it out, and then use a scraper to flatten the transfer tape over the top of your vinyl. Now I did use a bit of masking tape just to tape down my vinyl to the table so it didn't move, but you could actually put your vinyl back onto your cutting mat or leave it on your cutting mat so it doesn't move around on your table while you're doing the weeding process. But what I'm doing here is just one final scrape of the back side of the design just to make sure that it is actually sticking to the transfer tape, and in this case it is, so I'm ready to peel off that backing part of the vinyl. And it's coming off so smoothly. It's really satisfying when that happens. Now I can move on to the next step, which is using my baking paper. So this is just normal Coles supermarket brand baking paper. You don't have to spend a lot on parchment paper or baking paper to do this next step. And same process with the transfer tape. What I like to do is fold down one end of it, works as a bit of a pull tab before placing it onto the transfer tape there. And with the baking paper here, so you can see through it, which makes applying the different layers really easy because you can see exactly where it needs to go. So get my baking paper placed over the top there, and you'll see it's the same size cutout, 25 by 13 centimeters, which will fit comfortably around my cup when I'm ready to apply it. So I've got that all lined up of my design where it needs to go, and I can use that folded over piece of the baking paper as a pull tab to pull it out from underneath my transfer tape as I'm using my scraper to place it down exactly where it needs to go. Now you could cut your design out separately, apply it separately to your glass, whatever you like to do in doing that, but this is one way to do it. And I'm actually going to set aside this piece of baking paper for the actual application to the glass as well, which you'll see soon. So I've got my design here ready to go. One final scrape on the back as well, just to make sure it's adhered to the transfer tape properly, and then remove off that backing piece of the vinyl. I'm already so happy with how this design is turning out. I'm hoping it looks really nice on the glass as well. So we can now move on to that step. So the same thing, I'm going to grab my baking paper, still with that folded piece at the end there, place it back onto the transfer tape, and it doesn't have to be applied hard. It's just a light application so it can be easily pulled off later once you've got that all lined up. And I mean, you'll see once I've got it wrapped around the glass how it makes it a lot easier having it cut to the right sort of size. And not everyone will do it this way, but this is just one way that I've found is really handy when applying it to your glass. Now I don't have a proper cup stand, but I'm just using one of my squeegees with the lines on there to hold my glass down for a moment. And I'm going to take my design here, and this is where you'll see where it lines up so nice and perfectly, being already cut in the exact size to go around my glass. Then you can line it up, and in this case I didn't have it quite right, so I pulled off that end just a little bit, lined it up a little bit better once I was happy with it, of course, and you can see how it fits so comfortably around the cup there. Once I was happy with it, flatten that down onto my glass just with my fingers, or you could use your squeegee to do it as well, whatever works best for you, what you're comfortable with. And then you can use that pull tab part of the baking paper just to gradually pull it out from underneath as you're flattening down the vinyl onto your cup. And that way, if you're going to do it nice and slowly like I am here, like this isn't a sped up version or anything like that, this is real time. It makes for reducing air bubbles under your vinyl much easier, I have found. And this is the process that just works really well for me, I've found, with various different designs. Then once you're happy with the placement of it, you can start to peel back your transfer tape. Now I do recommend going slowly to do this, as much as it's tempting just to pull it off quickly. Definitely try and go slow, and make sure to pull back your transfer tape like it's nice and flat against your cup rather than upwards. You'll run the risk of pulling the vinyl up with the transfer tape if you pull it up too aggressively. So a bit of a slow going process here, but it is well worth it to make sure your design is on there nice and safely. And once you're happy with how that's all been pulled off, there you go, you've got yourself a beautiful glass can vinyl decal wrap. And I'm so happy with how this one has turned out. I'd love to try this in another couple of colours, and as I said, this design is available in my Etsy shop, Designed in the Valley, as an SVG download if you wanted to give it a try. I'm so happy with how this one turned out. I hope you have enjoyed my video, and we will see you next time.